Hello students, welcome to the fourth session of the chapter Sexual Reproduction in Flowering Plants. In the last session, we were talking about the structure of the pollen grain and how the male gametes are formed. So today we will talk about the pollen viability and the economic importance of the pollen grain. First, taking up the topic pollen viability. Pollen viability means it is the ability of the pollen grain to perform its function in transferring the male gametes. Means pollen grain after releasing from the anther, so how long it will be functional in transferring the male gametes is called as pollen viability. This pollen viability, it's not the same in all the pollen grains. It will vary from species to species. In some of the plants, that is like cereals, in the plants that is cereals, in paddy, wheat, the pollen viability means it is only functional for only 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, it is going to lose the capacity of transferring the male gametes. Within 30 minutes, if it transfer the male gametes, after that, it will lose the viability. In the same way, the pollen viability also remains for months together. In some of the plants which belongs to the family Rosaceae, Leguminosae, Solanaceae, and the plants belonging to this family, the pollen viability will be remaining for months together. Means for months, within a month or also extending for 2 months, the pollen viability will be there, means it can transfer the male gametes. And the same way, the atmospheric condition, the environmental factors also have the effect on the pollen viability. The temperature and humidity also has the effect on the pollen viability. If you want to retain the pollen viability for a longer period of time, you can store the pollen grain in liquid nitrogen, that is minus 196 degrees Celsius. If you store the pollen grain, the pollen viability will be remaining for longer period of time, and also you can store the pollen grain and use the pollen grain in future for crop breeding programs. So this is the pollen viability. Next, going to the economic importance of the pollen grain. Pollen grain is also useful and as well as it has some bad effects. So that we'll discuss on the economic importance of the pollen grain. Economic importance of pollen grain. So pollen grains are highly nutritious, and hence in some of the western countries it is used as food, and it is taken as food in the form of tablets and the syrup. So, and hence pollen grain, it is used as food supplement. And it is also known it will increase the performance of the race horses and also the athletes. It will increase their performance, and hence it is used as a food supplement. And also pollen grain, as well as the useful effect, also it has some of the bad effects on the human health. The pollen grains are highly allergic. It causes the allergy. Well-known examples for the pollen grains which causes the allergy is the Parthenium. Parthenium is the one which causes the allergy, and also it causes some of the respiratory diseases like bronchitis, hay fever and asthma. All this has been caused because of the pollen grains. So in this way, pollen grain has both useful and harmful aspects. And this is the economic importance of the pollen grain. Okay, now taking up the another important part of the flower, that is an gynoecium, female reproductive part of the flower, which produces the female gametes, and very important in the formation of the gametes, and next the fertilization. Gynoecium, you know the individual units of the gynoecium, that is the carpel or pistil. Carpel or pistil is the individual units of the gynoecium, and the carpel has three important parts. The basal swollen part is called as ovary, and the long slender part is called as an style, and the tip is called as an stigma. These are the three important parts of the carpel, and in the ovary the empty space will be present, and that is called as an locule, and inside the locule there will be a nutritive tissue which is called placenta, and to this placenta the ovule will be attached. The ovule will be attached to this placenta, and hence ovule is present inside the ovary attached to the placenta. The number of ovules will vary from carpels to carpels. In this way, these are the part of the carpel, and the number of carpel will vary from species to species. In some of the flower, the number of the carpel will be only one, and then it is called as an monocarpellary. Monocarpellary. If only one carpel is there, then it is called as a monocarpellary, and you can observe this monocarpellary in some of the plants, that is like paddy, maize, wheat, etc. In these plants, the carpel will be only one. In the same way, the carpels will be also many in number. If it is 2, then we call it as a bicarpellary, 3, tricarpellary, and many we call it as an multicarpellary. Multicarpellary. If the carpels are many, multicarpellary. Here you can see the two conditions, that is the multicarpellary. If the carpels, it may exist in fused form, or it may be in the free form. If it is fused, then it is called as syncarpous. If the carpels, many in number, all are fused, then it is called as an syncarpous, and the carpels many in number and all are free, then it is called as an apocarpous. So in multicarpellary, two conditions will exist: syncarpous, apocarpous. Syncarpous, you can see this syncarpous, even in hibiscus the number of carpels will be 5 and it will be fused. That is called pentacarpellary, and if it is many, called, that is multicarpellary syncarpous. This you can observe in papaver, also commonly called as an poppy. That is papaver. In this species you can observe the carpels all it will be fused. In the same way, many carpels it will be free in condition, and that you can observe in some of the plants, that is like nelumbo, that is lotus, and micaelia, also called micaelia champaka. That is, in this species, you can observe carpels will be many and all it will be free in condition, called multicarpellary apocarpous. So in this way, the carpel, if it is one, monocarpellary; if it is many, multicarpellary. Multicarpellary, if it is free, then it is called apocarpous. If it is fused, then it is called syncarpous. In the same way, the ovules which are present inside the ovary, it will also vary. In some of the species, that is like paddy, wheat and all, the number of ovules will be 1. Best example is mango. The number of ovule in mango, paddy, all it will be only 1. In the same way, the number of ovules will also be many. For example, in watermelon, papaya, the number of ovules will be many. So, ovules also will vary from 1 to many. So, this is the parts of the carpel, the individual units of the gynoecium, that is the female reproductive part. So, next coming to the in detail structure of the ovary. Now, in the ovary, ovule is present. Now, we have to concentrate on the ovule, because now we have to mainly focus how the gametes are produced in this female reproductive part. The main intention is that we have to know how the gametes are produced, because to this gamete, the male gamete which are present in the pollen grain is going to fuse, and then fertilization is going to take place. And hence we have to know how the female gametes are produced. For that, mainly we have to focus on the ovule which is present inside the ovule. So the ovule, the detailed structure of the ovule, here we have written, this is the structure of the ovule, also called as an anatropous ovule. Anatropous ovule, which is nothing but anatropous ovule means the ovule which is inverted, means it is not straight, it is inverted, and such type of ovule is called anatropous ovule. And why we are studying the anatropous ovule, not the straight one which is called orthotropous? If it is straight, called orthotropous. If it is inverted, called anatropous. There are different types of ovule, how it has been arranged inside the ovary. Mainly we will concentrate on the anatropous ovule, because in majority of the species the ovule is inverted, and in this condition only majority of the ovary, the ovule will be present. And hence this is the ovule which we will be studying, that is anatropous ovule. And this ovule, it will be attached to the ovary. Now this is the outer, this is ovary is present here, this ovule is attached in an inverted condition, and the stalk of the ovule is called funicle. Stalk of the ovule is called funicle, and this is the body of the ovule where it is attached. The funicle which is attached to the body of the ovule is called hilum. It is a point of attachment between the funicle and the body of the ovule. That point is called hilum. And this funicle, it is little bit extended up to certain point, and that region is called raphe. And the extended part of the funicle is called raphe, which will supply the vasculature to the ovule body. And this entire ovule is surrounded by two covering, which is called as integument. The covering of the ovule is called integument. One is outer and another is inner. That is outer integument, and this is inner integument. So these are the two covering of the ovule body. And next, this integuments, it will not completely surround the ovule. At one tip, it will be opening will be present, the integument will not be covering. That tip is called as micropyle. Micropyle, opposite to the micropyle, the base of the ovule body. It is also called as a base of the ovule body, that is called chalaza. The base of the ovule body called chalaza, and where the integuments are free, where it is not completely covered, that point is called micropyle. And next to the integument, so inner side, nutritive tissue, parenchyma tissue, mass of parenchyma tissue will be present, which is called as nucellus. It is a nutritive tissue made up of parenchyma, and it gives the nutrition which is rich in preferred food material, provide the nutrition for the embryo sac. And here you can observe a sac-like structure which is present, and that is called embryo sac. Embryo sac, which is also called as a female gametophyte. Embryo sac is also called as female gametophyte, and it is called female gametophyte because it carries the female gamete, and hence it is called female gametophyte. And this embryo sac, actually it will be developed from this parenchyma tissue, nucellus tissue. That is the detailed process where how this embryo sac is going to develop from this nucellus tissue. That is a detailed process which we will be discussing under megasporogenesis and megagametogenesis. The two processes is going to occur, and megasporogenesis and megagametogenesis. Then from this nucellus tissue, this embryo sac is going to develop. Initially in the young ovule, there will be no embryo sac. Gradually, as the ovule mature, the embryo sac is going to develop. And this is the very important, and in further classes we will be knowing how this embryo sac is going to develop. In this embryo sac, actually it is called 7-celled 8-nucleate condition. Embryo sac is called as 7-celled 8-nucleate condition. Means it will be having 7 cell and 8 nuclei will be present, and how it is going to form we will discuss further. And the cells, that is 7 cell here, 3, 6, 7, and this cell is considered as one single large cell, that is 3, 6, 7 cell, and these are the nuclei 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And because of that, it is called as 7-celled 8-nucleate condition. And the cells which are present towards the micropyle, here towards the micropyle the 3 cells will be present. And here these are called as an egg apparatus. Egg apparatus. And the cells which are present towards the chalaza are called antipodals. Antipodals or antipodal cells. 3 cells are considered as an antipodals, and this is the large central cell. This is the large central cell which includes 2 nuclei called polar nuclei. In the central cell 2 nuclei will be present called polar nuclei. All that we'll discuss in detail when we take up the embryo sac. So in general, talking about the embryo sac, it will be having 7-celled and 8-nucleate condition. In that, the 3 cells present towards the micropyle called egg apparatus, 3 cells present towards the chalaza called antipodals, and the single large central cells consisting of 2 polar nuclei. This is the structure of the embryo sac. And this embryo sac will be present in the center, which will be developing from the nucellus. So this is the structure of the ovule, also called as an anatropous ovule or inverted ovule. Means the ovule will be in the form of invert condition, and hence it is called as an inverted ovule. And this ovule is very important, and it will be asked for the major question 5 marks in your board exams. And the structure will be asked, you have to draw the neat label diagram, and also it will be asked for the explanation, you need to explain. So thank you.